Part 1 opens inside the Galactic Academy, a massive and cold place designed to remind every student that weakness has no place among the stars. Where the ceiling stretches so high it disappears into darkness and distant stars drift above like silent judges. And hundreds of alien students fill the curved seats, each one shaped by a different world, some covered in scales, some wrapped in armor grown from bone, others floating or glowing. All of them loud with confidence and pride, all of them trained to survive worlds far harsher than most planets in the galaxy. And at the very back of this grand hall sits Eli Carter, a human student from Earth, unnoticed and ignored, wearing a plain gray uniform with no marks of rank or honor. His posture calm and still, his eyes lowered not from fear but from habit, because on Earth staying quiet often means staying alive. While around him alien students whisper and laugh, mocking his small size and soft skin, calling him weak without ever speaking to him directly, assuming that silence means fear and that stillness means surrender. And Eli lets them believe it because he has learned that showing strength too early only paints a target on your back. The mood of the hall shifts when Instructor Korthel enters, a towering veteran from a brutal high-gravity world, his massive body marked with old scars, his voice deep and sharp as a weapon. And when he strikes his staff against the floor, the room falls silent at once, because everyone there knows he has survived wars that wiped out entire species. And he announces the Deathworld survival trial, a test spoken of in fear and pride across the academy. A trial where students are dropped alone onto a hostile planet with limited tools and no help, expected to survive for 72 hours. And everyone understands what he does not say clearly, that many will not come back alive. And the stronger students straighten in their seats, eager to prove themselves, while others feel fear crawl into their hearts. But Eli remains still, listening carefully, memorizing every word, because danger is something he knows well. Korthal's many eyes scan the hall and stop on Eli, and the instructor calls him forward, his voice filled with doubt and challenge. And laughter spreads through the room as the human walks alone down the long steps, each step echoing in the massive hall. And when Korthal speaks of Earth as a Category 12 death world with a tone of disbelief, Eli looks up and meets his gaze calmly, answering with quiet respect that he understands what is coming. And that calm answer only fuels more laughter, because to the galaxy confidence is loud and strength is shown through aggression, not silence, and Korthal decides to make an example of him, announcing that the trial will reveal what a human truly is. And before Eli can respond, the floor beneath him opens without warning, dropping him into darkness as the trial begins instantly, without mercy or ceremony. And Eli falls through cold air before slamming into thick mud on the surface of the Deathworld, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs as red rain pours from a black sky and burns slightly against his skin. The air heavy and sharp, filled with toxins that would choke weaker lungs. Gravity pressing down harder than Earth's, making every movement cost effort. And all around him he hears the distant screams of other students landing badly, crashing into trees, rocks, oceans, and fire-filled plains, some dying on impact. Others crying out in terror as unseen creatures roar in the distance, and Eli lies still for a moment, not in shock but in focus, checking his breathing, his limbs, the pain in his ribs, forcing his body to calm itself the way he was taught long ago. Then slowly pushing himself to his feet, mud clinging to his uniform, rain sliding down his face, and instead of fear there is a small smile on his lips, because the environment feels familiar in a terrible way, reminding him of storms, disasters, and dangerous places on Earth where humans learn to adapt or die. And as he whispers that it feels like home, the meaning is not comfort but understanding. because Earth never protected its people. It tested them every day and above the planet. Far beyond the deadly skies, instructors and observers watched the trial unfold from orbit. Their screens filled with chaos and death, focusing on the strongest students, the ones from warlike species who charge into danger with weapons raised, while Eli does not draw attention, does not fight immediately, does not scream or run wildly. And because of that, no one watches him, missing the moment where he bends to study the mud, tests the air, listens to the sounds of predators, and begins planning, and this quiet beginning sets the true tone of the story, showing that the greatest threat is not the loudest or strongest, but the one who understands danger deeply and treats survival not as glory but as a task to be completed. And as the first night approaches and shadows stretch across the hostile land, the galaxy unknowingly turns its back on the one student who is already prepared for what comes next. Part 2 begins with the first night on the Deathworld, a place so hostile that every breath feels like fire and every step can be your last. And the planet itself seems alive, filled with predators the size of transport ships, forests that move with hidden venomous creatures, oceans that boil in acid rain, and storms that shred anything in their path, creating an environment that tests every ounce of courage and skill of the students. While screams echo across valleys as alien cadets fall victim to the land itself, some impaled by sharp vines, some dragged into rivers filled with teeth, and some crushed beneath falling rock and fire, and yet amidst all this chaos, Eli Carter moves with careful precision, his calm eyes scanning the terrain, his body conserving energy while constantly adjusting to danger. As he begins the first real demonstration of his ingenuity, using fragments of his broken drop pod to craft rudimentary weapons, sharpening metal into blades, making simple tools for defense and survival, lighting small controlled fires to signal location or cook food, and finding hidden sources of water and nourishment, all while staying silent and unseen, because every step in the wrong direction could alert a predator, and his first kill comes almost naturally when a six-legged beast charges, and instead of panicking, Eli lets it come, times his movement perfectly, sliding beneath it and striking at its vulnerable throat, showing an understanding of anatomy, timing, and patience that comes from observing rather than rushing. And as the night deepens, when Hesta night deepens, when effetience that comes from observing rather than rushing, and as the night deepens, when Pavendru deepens, when Asdendum Zenmet, poisonous fog rolls in that would kill or paralyze lesser beings. He wraps cloth around his face, holds his breath, and crawls underground, demonstrating a mastery of restraint and awareness, traits that no other student seems to have. And as the instructors in orbit watch, they finally notice him on the feed, dragging a dead predator into a small cave, his calm demeanor in the midst of carnage standing in stark contrast to the panicked and aggressive aliens around him. And the data on their screen shows his heart rate steady, injuries minor, stress levels controlled, which confounds the instructors, particularly Corthel, who growls in disbelief at the evidence that a human could survive under such conditions without screaming or panicking. And as the trial continues, alliances among alien students collapse as the environment forces them into competition, betrayal and bloodshed, many hunting each other instead of the planet. While Eli avoids conflict with other students unless necessary, choosing observation, strategy, and careful calculation, and slowly, creatures begin dying in unnatural ways around him. Falling into traps he sets from the environment, fire, mud, spikes, and collapsing trees, and other students start to whisper over their channels, questioning what is happening, realizing that there is a force in the wild, precise and deadly, that cannot be seen, but that Eli is orchestrating, moving through the chaos like a shadow, using terrain, tools, and his mind as weapons. And when the strongest alien students finally confront him, Assuming his silence signals weakness, he stands openly in a clearing, surrounded by dead predators, showing no fear, no hesitation. And when one armored giant charges him, demanding he join their group or die, Eli calmly refuses, demonstrating a quiet but unshakable will. And when the warrior attacks, Eli moves with a combination of speed, precision, and intelligence, using dust to blind, leveraging terrain to slow momentum, striking at weak points, and employing the opponent's own strength against him until the warrior is incapacitated, alive but helpless, and Eli kneels beside him, speaking softly that he does not wish to kill but will do whatever is necessary to survive. A simple sentence that resonates across the Deathworld as others witness the human's ability to maintain calm and control in the face of overwhelming danger. And as the day progresses into the third, the planet itself begins to escalate the challenge, the instructors initiating the final phase by awakening the planetary apex predator, an ancient, colossal, and nearly unstoppable creature capable of destroying mountains, breaking rivers, and shaking the skies with its roar. And students panic, scattering, abandoning all caution and strategy in their desperation. While Eli does not run, standing his ground and analyzing the massive threat, calculating weaknesses, watching its movement, and making a single decision to lead any survivors to safety, opening a channel and calmly instructing them to follow. And despite fear and disbelief, they do, because the human displays a certainty that eclipses the panic surrounding them. And this quiet leadership draws together scattered students who would have otherwise been crushed by the beast, forming a small group united not by alliance but by trust in Eli's judgment, and through his keen observation, rapid adaptation, and quiet courage, he begins teaching them how to prepare for what seems impossible, demonstrating a form of strength alien species rarely understand. The strength of the mind paired with steady nerves and survival instinct, and as they move through the hostile terrain, setting traps, identifying safe zones, and avoiding unnecessary conflict, the instructors observe, their astonishment growing as the humans' approach turns the trial into a display not just of survival but of ingenuity, leadership, and the padana, quiet power of a species underestimated throughout the galaxy. And in this way, Part 2 demonstrates how Eli's calm mind, strategic thinking, and patience allow him not only to survive a world designed to kill the unprepared, but to begin to influence and lead others, showing that in a universe filled with loud and aggressive beings, the quiet observer who calculates, adapts, and controls fear can become the most formidable presence. And by the end of this section, humanity's unique ability to remain calm under pressure, to observe, to learn, and to act decisively becomes evident, setting the stage for the final confrontation with the apex predator, and establishing that the quiet student no one noticed is in fact the most dangerous force on the Deathworld, demonstrating that courage is not measured in noise or bravado, but in the ability to survive and lead when all odds are against you, and that the galaxy is about to learn the cost of underestimating humans. Part 3 begins with the arrival of the apex predator, a colossal and terrifying creature awakened by the instructors as the final phase of the Deathworld trial. Its body larger than any transport, muscles rippling beneath scales harder than metal, eyes glowing with a predatory intelligence. And as it moves, mountains crumble, trees splinter, and rivers boil, while panic spreads among the remaining students who scramble desperately to avoid its massive claws and crushing tail, their weapons and training proving nearly useless against its sheer power. And in the chaos, Eli Carter remains calm, his body bleeding from previous injuries, his muscles aching, but his mind razor-sharp, as he surveys the terrain for the best place to lead the survivors and set traps, knowing instinctively that brute force alone cannot overcome such a monster. And he calls out over the channel, guiding those who survive the initial nights. his voice steady, offering instructions and reassurance, a human presence in a world of panic, and his quiet confidence draws them together, giving them the courage to follow him into the canyon filled with the wreckage of previous trials, a place where the dead machines of old battles lie scattered like bones, providing raw materials for traps and weapons. And once there, Eli immediately begins organizing the students, teaching them how to wire power cells into the remnants of old energy shields, how to rig explosive traps using scavenged fuel and metal, how to turn scrap into weapons that could strike even a creature of unimaginable size. And as they work, the fear in their eyes begins to fade, replaced by trust in the human who had been overlooked, the same student who had survived alone when all others doubted him. And as the predator approaches, its roar shaking the canyon walls and sending birds and smaller creatures fleeing in terror, Eli climbs to the highest wreck to draw its attention, positioning himself as bait, knowing that this act may be fatal but that it is necessary to give the others a chance. And as the beast charges, he yells to provoke it, causing it to smash against the wreckage, triggering traps that explode and release stored energy, fire and electricity striking the creature, wounding it but not stopping it. And the wreck collapses under its weight, sending Eli crashing to the ground, his body battered, ribs broken, blood in his mouth. But even in this moment, he refuses to give in, to scream, to lose control. And when the others freeze, unsure of what to do, he rises again, shaking, bleeding, yet smiling faintly, whispering a simple word, again, and his example sparks action in the remaining students, who begin to implement the traps and attacks he had taught them, working together under his calm guidance, combining their strength, knowledge, and fear into coordinated strikes. And through this teamwork, they managed to wound the beast repeatedly, confusing it and exhausting it, with every blow showing the human capacity for strategy, resilience, and leadership. And as the battle rages, the apex predator, though powerful, begins to falter against the intelligent coordination and quick thinking of its attackers. And after a tense and grueling fight, it finally collapses, a massive shadow fallen in the canyon. Silence following the roar, the ground still trembling from its defeat. And Eli collapses from exhaustion, pain, and blood loss, but he is alive. And the surviving students gather around, looking at him with a mixture of awe, respect, and newfound understanding, having seen firsthand the quiet human who had outsmarted and outlasted both the planet and its deadliest creature. And as rescue ships descend from orbit, beaming them aboard, the instructors observe, some in disbelief, some in grudging admiration, as Korthal himself approaches Eli in the med bay, towering and scarred, and asks why he had remained quiet while the others shouted, fought, and panicked. And Eli answers simply, reflecting the human experience of observation, patience, and survival, saying that on Earth, quiet ones are usually watching, learning, and preparing. And this statement resonates across the galaxy, revealing the philosophy behind human resilience, that survival comes not from showing off strength or aggression but from understanding, adaptability, and the willingness to endure pain and danger with calm determination. And as word spreads of the human who survived the Deathworld trial, the story becomes legend, not just of his individual skill, but of the human species' ability to survive impossible odds, adapt to environments no other species could master, and lead through intellect and courage rather than sheer force. And the lesson becomes clear to every observer across the stars. Humans are underestimated at great peril, their quiet strength masking a fierce intelligence, their patience hiding an unstoppable will, and their survival instincts turning what looks like weakness into triumph. And in the aftermath, The surviving alien students and instructors alike reflect on the event, recognizing that victory was achieved not by the largest, fastest, or most heavily armed, but by the one who observed, calculated, and endured, guiding others through chaos with calm authority, demonstrating that courage and leadership are not always loud, that the quiet student who no one noticed can become the deciding factor in the deadliest trials, and that humanity, when pushed to the edge, can inspire awe, fear, and respect across the galaxy, leaving a lasting mark on the story of the Deathworld trial and establishing Eli, and through him all humans, as a species capable of facing impossible challenges and emerging not just alive, but victorious. And in this way, Part 3 concludes the epic arc, showing how observation, intelligence, patience, and courage combined with teaching and leadership can overcome overwhelming physical power, making a quiet human the hero in a galaxy filled with war-hardened, loud, and aggressive species, and ensuring that from that day forward, no one would underestimate a human again.